The guard walked slowly past the cell. His boots echoed against cold concrete. He lifted his flashlight and shined it through the metal bars. On the bed, a man was sleeping. His head rested on the pillow. His face looked calm and still. Everything looked normal. The guard moved on. What he did not know was this: that head was fake. The bed was empty. And at that very moment, 3 prisoners were already gone. They were moving through the walls of Alcatraz, climbing toward the roof, heading for freezing black water that had killed many men before them. This prison was built to make escape impossible. No one was meant to leave alive. Yet on this night, the impossible was happening. And once the sun came up, the world would be left with a mystery that still has no answer. Alcatraz was not designed like other prisons. It was designed to end hope. The prison sat alone on a small island in the middle of the ocean. The water around it was always cold. Even in summer, it could freeze a man's body in minutes. Strong currents pulled anything in the water away from shore, not toward it. To the guards, the ocean was better than any wall. To the prisoners, it was a promise of death. If you were sent to Alcatraz, it meant the prison system had decided you were too dangerous, too smart, or too hard to control anywhere else. This was where escape artists, gang leaders, and rule breakers were sent when every other prison failed. The moment a prisoner arrived, the message was clear. There were no second chances here. Inside, everything was strict. Wake-up times were exact. Meals were silent. Movement was controlled. Each prisoner lived in a small cell made of steel and concrete. There was a narrow bed, a small fold-down table, and a sink with cold water only. No privacy. No comfort. Talking was limited. Laughing was rare. Thinking too much could drive a man mad. Some prisoners said the worst punishment was not the bars. It was the silence. You could hear your own thoughts all day. And at night, the sound of the ocean crashing against the rocks reminded you where you were. Many prisoners stopped dreaming after a few weeks. They followed rules. They waited for time to pass. Guards told them the same story again and again. No one has ever escaped Alcatraz. They said the water was too cold. The currents too strong. The distance too far. They said if you tried, you would drown before reaching land. Over time, most prisoners believed it. They accepted that Alcatraz was the end of the road. But prisons age just like people. The salty ocean air slowly ate away at the concrete walls. Metal rusted. Cracks formed. The guards trusted the prison too much. They believed the island was perfect. They believed fear alone was enough to stop escape. They never imagined that the prison itself was slowly breaking apart. And they never imagined that somewhere inside those silent walls, someone was watching, learning, and waiting. Waiting for the smallest mistake. Waiting for the prison to fail first. And it already had. Frank Morris did not look dangerous. He did not shout. He did not fight. He did not draw attention to himself. That was what made him dangerous. Frank had been in many prisons before Alcatraz. He had escaped from some of them. Not by force but by thinking. Guards knew this. That was why he was sent here. Alcatraz was supposed to stop men like him. From the first day, Frank listened. He listened to the guards' footsteps. He listened to the keys. He listened to the ocean at night. He watched how the guards moved. How often they checked cells. Which places they ignored. Most prisoners stared at the walls and waited for the days to end. Frank studied the prison like a puzzle. Weeks passed. One night, while washing his hands, Frank noticed something strange. The wall behind the sink looked rough. Small pieces of concrete were missing. The paint was peeling away. He pressed his fingers against it. The wall felt weak. Not strong like stone. Not solid like steel. It felt old. Frank pulled his hand back and looked around. No guards. No sound. Just the quiet hum of the prison. That night he could not sleep. He thought about the wall. He thought about the ocean. He thought about how prisons were built by people, and people make mistakes. The next night, Frank tested the wall again. This time he used a spoon from the dining hall. He scraped gently. Just a little. Concrete dust fell into the sink. His heart started beating fast. This was real. The prison was not perfect. Still, Frank did nothing for days. He knew better than to rush. Alcatraz punished mistakes harshly. One wrong move, one sound at the wrong time, and the plan would end before it began. Frank waited and watched. That was when he noticed the Anglin brothers. John and Clarence Anglin were different from most prisoners. They followed rules. They worked hard. Guards trusted them. They were allowed more movement than others. And most importantly, they were quiet. Frank watched them for weeks before speaking. When he finally did, it was late at night, in whispers so soft they almost disappeared into the silence. He told them about the wall. The brothers did not laugh. They did not doubt him. They asked one question: "Can it be opened?" Frank nodded. In that moment, everything changed. But knowing the wall was weak was only the beginning, because escaping a cell was one thing. Escaping the island was something else entirely. And outside those walls waited water that had never shown mercy to anyone before. Trust was rare inside Alcatraz. Most prisoners kept to themselves. Friends could become enemies overnight. One wrong word could reach a guard and end everything. That is why Frank Morris chose carefully. The Anglin brothers had something most prisoners did not: discipline. They woke up on time. They worked without complaint. They never caused trouble. To the guards they were harmless. To Frank they were perfect. John and Clarence had grown up near rivers. Cold water did not scare them. Swimming was part of their lives long before prison bars closed around them. When Frank spoke of the ocean, they did not look away. They listened. Still, the brothers knew the truth. Even if they escaped the cells, even if they reached the roof, the water could still kill them. The currents around the island were strong. They pulled swimmers away from land, not toward it. Many believed no one could survive long enough to reach shore. That night, the three men talked quietly, hiding their words between the sounds of the prison. They did not speak of freedom. They spoke of details. How often guards checked the cells. Which paths were never watched. What time the prison truly slept. Frank explained the hidden space behind the walls. The Anglin brothers explained what they knew about water and timing. Slowly, a plan began to form. But it was not a brave plan. It was not a fast plan. It was a plan built on patience. They knew this would take months, maybe longer. Every day they acted normal. They followed rules. They smiled when guards passed. Inside, their minds were racing. One problem remained. They needed tools. And in Alcatraz, nothing was given freely. They began stealing small metal spoons from the dining hall. One at a time. No rush. No pattern. At night, Frank scraped the wall behind his sink. Just a little. Always careful. Always listening. Concrete dust fell like sand. The hole grew slowly. But danger grew with it. One night, a guard stopped near Frank's cell longer than usual. The flashlight stayed still. Frank froze. His heart pounded. The guard moved on. The wall survived that night. But the men knew something important now. They were running out of time. Because once a plan begins, fear becomes louder. And fear makes mistakes. Outside the cell, the ocean waited. Inside the prison, silence was breaking. And soon, the prison would notice something was wrong. The hole in the wall grew wider each week. Not fast. Never fast. Frank Morris scraped the concrete every night after lights out. The sound was soft, almost like sand rubbing together. Still, he stopped often. He listened for footsteps. He counted breaths. The Anglin brothers did the same in their cells. Each man worked alone. But every scrape carried the same goal. Concrete dust became a problem. Too much of it would raise questions. So they hid it in their pockets and shook it out slowly during yard time, letting the wind carry it away. Guards never noticed. Above the hole was a narrow space no one inspected. Old pipes ran through it. Dust and darkness filled the air. When Frank first climbed into it, his hands shook. This was new ground. This was dangerous. But it worked. The men could now leave their cells without being seen. Still, the biggest problem remained. The water. Everyone in Alcatraz feared the water. It was cold enough to steal your breath. Strong enough to pull you under. Wide enough to make land feel unreachable. Swimming was not an option. So the men made one. They began collecting raincoats from around the prison. From the laundry. From storage. From anywhere no one would notice. One raincoat meant nothing. 50 meant hope. The brothers stitched them together in secret. They used thread taken from the workshop. They sealed the seams using heat from pipes. Slowly, the raincoats became something else. A raft. It was not pretty. It was not strong. But it could float. They tested small pieces in sinks and buckets. Water slid off. Air stayed inside. Still, floating was not enough. They needed to leave their beds without guards noticing. That was when Frank came up with the idea that would fool the prison itself. Fake heads. They mixed soap, toilet paper, and toothpaste. They shaped faces by hand. They painted them carefully. Hair from the prison barber shop made them real. In the dark, under blankets, they looked alive. Too alive. Night after night, the men practiced. Climbing through the hole. Moving through the ceiling. Reaching the roof. Every step had to be perfect. One mistake would mean the end. And soon, the moment would come when there would be no turning back. Because once they left their cells, the prison would wake up. And nothing would ever be the same again. The date was June 11, 1962. The air inside the prison felt different that night. Heavier. Colder. Frank Morris sat on his bed, calm on the outside, restless on the inside. Months of planning had led to this moment. Every scrape of concrete. Every stolen raincoat. Every silent practice run. There would be no second chance. The Anglin brothers lay on their beds, staring at the ceiling. They did not speak. They did not move. Each man knew the plan by heart. Lights went out. Footsteps echoed through the cell block as guards made their final checks. Flashlights passed bars. Faces were counted. Frank placed the fake head on his pillow and pulled the blanket up carefully. From the hallway it looked perfect. A sleeping man. Nothing more. When the guard's footsteps faded, Frank moved. He slid from his bed and stepped into the hole behind the sink. His heart pounded so loud he feared it could be heard. He climbed into the hidden space and felt the cold air wrap around him. One by one the men met above the cells. Dust filled their lungs. Pipes pressed against their backs. The ceiling was low and tight. Every movement had to be slow. They reached the final opening. Above them was the roof. Frank pushed gently. Nothing happened. He pushed again. The cover lifted. Cool night air rushed in. They were out. The men climbed onto the roof, staying low to avoid the towers. Guards stood nearby, unaware that the prison had already been beaten. They moved across the roof and slid down a pipe on the far side of the building. Below them waited the water. The raft was ready. They lowered it into the ocean, careful not to splash. The cold air burned their lungs. The water moved fast, whispering danger. Frank stepped in first. Then the brothers. With quiet hands they pushed off from the island. The raft drifted into the dark. No alarms sounded. No shouts followed. Behind them Alcatraz stood silent. Ahead of them, only black water and fate. And by morning the prison would discover a truth it could never erase. The raft moved slowly at first. The men did not rush. They did not speak. Each movement was careful, measured, controlled. The water was colder than anything they had felt before. It bit into their skin and stole their breath. The current pulled hard, trying to turn the raft away from land. Frank and the Anglin brothers paddled with their hands, timing their movements between waves. They aimed not for the bright lights of the city, but for the darkness beyond them. Behind them, the prison faded into shadow. In front of them, the ocean stretched wide and unforgiving. Minutes passed, then more. The cold grew worse. The raft rocked. If they fell in, there would be no second chance. Somewhere in the darkness, the current changed. The raft turned. And then, they were gone. No one saw them again. When morning came, Alcatraz woke up like any other day. Guards walked their rounds. Keys rattled. Orders were given. A guard stopped at Frank Morris's cell and told him to wake up. There was no movement. The guard tapped the head on the pillow. It rolled onto the floor. The silence shattered. Alarms rang. Guards ran. Cells were searched. 3 beds were empty. Walls were broken. The prison that was never meant to be beaten had been defeated. Boats were sent out immediately. The coast was searched. Helicopters scanned the water. Pieces of a raft were found. Bits of raincoat floated in the bay. But there were no bodies. No proof. Only questions. The search lasted for days. Then weeks. Then years. The FBI investigated the escape longer than any other case in its history. Some believed the men drowned. Others believed they survived, reaching land and disappearing forever. Strange clues appeared. A family in South America claimed they had seen the Anglin brothers. A flower was placed on their mother's grave every year, long after the escape. No one could prove anything. Alcatraz closed not long after. Officially, the escape was listed as a failure. But unofficially, no one could say for sure. Alcatraz was built to break men. It used fear, isolation, and the ocean itself as weapons. But on one quiet night, 3 prisoners proved something powerful. Even the strongest prison is built by humans. And humans make mistakes. Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers walked into the darkness and never returned. Whether they died in the water or lived in freedom, one truth remains. Alcatraz was escaped. And the prison that claimed no one could ever leave lost its greatest lie. Some mysteries stay locked forever. And some escape. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another true prison documentary. And comment below where you're watching from, your city, your country, anywhere in the world. Welcome to the Silent Crime Vault.